Alright guys, what is going on? Welcome back to Yammie Noob, the channel where this is your boy Yammie Noob. He rides motorcycles, he makes lists, does all kinds of fun stuff. Today, I wanted to talk about group rides, beginner riders and group rides and that kind of stuff. I got a cool DM on Instagram asking me to talk about that because I asked you guys what you wanted to hear me talk about. So we're going to talk about group rides. Two things, if you don't know, this is our FZ07 we ride here on the channel. We are actually giving away this motorcycle. Click the link below to learn more about how you can get started and win this bike, which is super cool. And the other thing is we're actually giving away a $100 Revzilla gift card. If you go to my Instagram, follow the steps on this image that you'll see down there, you can enter to win. I will be selecting a winner tomorrow, I believe, is when this episode goes live. And so tomorrow we will schedule a winner and get everything ready and rolling on that. But with that all being said, let's get on the bike and let's talk about beginner riders and group rides. Let's do it. As always, we'll get a sound check on the FZ because it just sounds so delicious. Let's put it here in neutral. That's a good motorcycle, isn't it? That is juicy. All right, let's get going. This bike is so ridiculously antisocial. I honestly feel a little bad for the winner because it is a raucous machine. God, this bike is fun, isn't it? So group rides, let's chat about them. For the 42% of my audience that don't ride motorcycles yet, which is a crazy statistic, but we know that because polls and data and that kind of thing. Group rides are when you either meet up with your friends to go ride on one of your favorite roads, or you do it online as well. My first experience with group rides actually was through an app called Meetup. Got a little bit of traffic here. It was through an app called Meetup. And because I didn't know anyone who rode a motorcycle, I decided to, go out on a limb and go meet up some guys at a gas station and have a good time on motorcycle. So the cool thing about meeting guys up, kind of randomly or through an app like that, is typically you're going to go and get linked up with like a proper group. It's not just a bunch of random dudes. Like the guys that I would go with were called DFW Sport Bike Riders, I believe was their name. First one I went up with, maybe it was a group of 10 or 12 guys, everything from, Ninja 300s all the way to R1s. Just everyone just trying to have a good time on a motorcycle. Wasn't really a case where, everyone's trying to go as fast as possible, that kind of stuff. You'll find that, in these kinds of online group me or like meetup type of things, the agenda for the group ride is typically set. Like you'll see a description of like what kind of riding it's going to be, like what kind of speed you should expect. Like there are some hardcore, meetups out there where guys will very clearly say like, hey, we're going to wear one-piece race suits, everyone's on the leader bike, and we're going to go really damn fast, which I don't necessarily agree with, but there are a group of guys out there, especially if you live in places like California that have much more twistier roads than here in Texas. And even here in Texas, they do it as well. But, there is a subset of rider that says, hey, we're gonna go ride fast, And we can discuss the irresponsibility or the, perceived danger for that at another episode. But I think for now, let's focus on what a beginner should expect. So, you'll meet up these guys online. You'll then go out to a meeting spot. It'll typically be like earlier in the morning. Most guys like to meet up early in the morning, do like a 3 or 4 hour ride, and then head back home and get on with their day. I know I did. That's how I like to do it. I like to usually meet up with my buddies at around 8 a.m., go out, hit up a bunch of roads, and, be back home by lunchtime. It's a nice setup. Mostly because, while some people are single, other people have families, other people have children, they have commitments, for the weekend and that kind of stuff. So you just want to make sure that, you're catering to a wide audience there. So yeah, I really liked my experience. I actually met one of my good riding buddies called Mike on one of those. Unfortunately, we don't talk as much anymore. Kind of fell off the radar, but I did meet a good friend of mine on there, and he was a nice guy to ride with eventually. I, to be honest, prefer, maybe a max of like 2 to 3 people on a given group ride. I think that any more than that, it starts to get a little chaotic in my opinion, especially the group rides where it's like, one of those like 50-person group rides, because at that point, you're not even really enjoying the ride. You're just kind of like, in this massive crowd of motorcycles just trying to survive. Everybody's like getting in each other's way. You always have that one guy who wants to rip a fat wheelie everywhere, which, hey, it's really fun to rip wheelies, but there's definitely a time and place for it, I really don't want to be right next to you when you decide to rip a wheelie, and I certainly don't want to be in front of you when you decide to rip a wheelie, and you're not, super comfortable, pressing that rear brake and bringing it down when you're ready to. There are some guys out there that try to show off, and there's people who ride a little beyond their means. I would say almost every big group ride that I've been to, somebody goes down, and that's not fun. It's not fun to be on a group ride and to be, thinking to yourself, okay, there's 50 guys here, one of us is going to go down, so I have a 2% chance of going down today. I don't like those odds. I don't know about you, but I really don't like those odds. So yeah, I'm not a super big fan of really big group rides. I think having a core group of like 3 or 4 guys that you know and trust and really ride well with is the sweet spot. But I'm totally not against you going out and meeting those guys online. I think most human interaction kind of occurs online now anyways, and I think that definitely go and feel out the vibe. If, for example, you are one of those guys that wants to ride a little bit quicker and you want to have some fun on your bike, and don't go to the Harley group meetup, right? Like, you're not going to have fun there. Like, if I was to show up with my gear the way I look and with my FZ07 here to a like Harley's day out or something like that, it just wouldn't really make sense. I think that while I absolutely do not condone super aggressive driving on the street anymore, because I was unfortunately a victim of my own doing there on crashing in an extremely big way when I did something like that. So I definitely don't condone that. But I think, if you're on a bike, there's definitely a sort of like 7/10 spirited pace that you can run that's really fun. You're not going to get in trouble with it. You're just ringing out the bike a little bit, having some fun. You're not going to get yourself in trouble, but you're also not doing 9/10, 10/10 on the street, because that's just not safe, guys. Don't do that. That's really not acceptable. And it's also like, if you're riding at 9/10 and 10/10, you're out of control. You know what I mean? Like, if you're riding at a 6/10, 7/10 kind of pace, you're gonna have a lot more fun because you're in control. You're riding at a pace that makes sense for you. If anything happens, you can quickly kind of stand the bike up and brake and do whatever you need to do. But yeah, I would say for beginners, all right, so back on beginners, so that's kind of my opinion on group riding in general, but for beginners, I would say don't do group rides until you at least have been riding for like 6 months, in my opinion. Just because, like I said, if you go out with the group and they're riding a bit too fast for you and you don't feel comfortable, testosterone's a hell of a drug. You're going to start trying to push yourself. You're going to start trying to ride in a way that, is not conducive to your skill set yet. And you're just going to be uncomfortable, to be honest. And it's going to dissuade you from riding in a group eventually anyway. So I would say wait until you got some miles under your belt. You feel a little more comfortable. I would say do not go on a group ride when you've had your bike for like a week or something like that. That's just going to spell disaster for you. Unless you live in a license restricted country where, for example, you go and meet up with a bunch of A1 level riders, and you've been riding for like a month or two, then I think it's okay. But here in America, because it's such a crapshoot about rider skill level, where you start off on, what kind of riding you're going to do, I think it's just a little bit too much of a gamble for which kind of motorcycling you're going to be doing that day. So yeah, for the newbies out there, take your time, man. You got your whole life to do group rides, And I will say, having a communicator system and hanging out with folks while you ride, like, that's definitely a big reason why a lot of us got into bikes, is because, you know, it allows for that fun factor. It allows for that sense of community. Like, you know, some of my fondest memories is getting off the bike and chatting with my buddies and hanging out after the ride, you know? That's what everyone likes to do. You can comment on, you know, something that happened or this and that. It's a really great time. So yeah, guys, I would say take your time with it, you know? There's going to be group rides for the rest of your life. The last thing you want to do is go out on one like a week after you've... Oh, that sucks, doesn't it? Last thing you want to do is go out on a group ride like a week after you've gotten your bike and you're just uncomfortable. It's going to put you off from riding. Maybe, you know, you might meet a group that you don't really vibe with either, and you're like, boy, these guys aren't really my crowd. I've definitely run into that before, where I've ridden with certain people and I'm like, you know what, like, even for me, this is a lot, you know? I don't want to ride like this. So yeah, what do you guys think? If you're a beginner rider or a newer rider, how did you feel about group riding? If you are getting started on a motorcycle pretty soon here, are you nervous to group ride? How do you feel about it? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in and subscribing. You can win this bike that I'm riding right now, actually, if you click the link in the description below on the Patreon page and learn how to enter to win for this bike. It's going to be super cool. This thing is an absolute peach, and I really, really enjoy it. I think it's going to be an awesome thing for the new owner of it. And yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. See you later.